Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from yourblackworld.com, and I was confused and a little bit disturbed by something that I saw this week that had to do with an AIDS activist who was booted out of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. You might have known about her. She was one of Emmy, her name is Rae Lewis-Thornton, and she is very candid about her experience with AIDS. She also has a very involved media that and they knew of her story. They'd seen her on the cover of Essence and all this other stuff. Now, I'm not really here to speculate what happened in the situation. The video is on Your Black World if you want to check it out. She's pretty candid in terms of describing what happened with the Delta president. But what I really want to talk about is this possibility that that maybe she's correct, that her perception, the work that she does, that maybe there are some people in the black community who don't want to talk about HIV/AIDS. Maybe there is something about Miss Lewis-Thornton's work that kind of makes her the honorary Delta with the stigma, and whether this is something that we really need to address as a community. So to kind of hit on this, I wanted to bring in Ree, our relationship guide, spelled R-E-E, who's a regular contributor to Your Black World and Black Lives Moi, one of our other websites, to kind of talk about some of this and really, put some of this in perspective in terms of black women, HIV, AIDS, etc. So first of all, Ree, I want to ask you, how are you today, ma'am?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you. I'm on the road as usual, and I love it. And I'm thinking about this topic because I have a lot of friends that are in the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. I also, am the father of 3 daughters, and I want them to grow up in a world where black women can be happy and healthy and safe and everything else. So the work that Miss Lewis-Thornton was doing was incredibly valuable in my mind, because I think that it was bringing attention to something that people don't talk about enough. And, so I wanted to ask you, what is your take on not just the candidate, but on the whole issue of black women, HIV, AIDS, and all this stuff?
Well, I definitely think sex is a very taboo topic in the African American community, in my opinion. And so it doesn't help us at all as a people. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention listed that African Americans dominate in numbers for HIV infections. And I mean, we pretty much dominate in numbers for almost every STD as well, but staying on topic with HIV and AIDS being discussed now, it did say in 2009, although we only made up 14% of the population in the United States, we accounted for over 40% of the HIV infections. So, it's just, we need to have conversations with our children very young about sex. I just think there is not enough discussion about it. It's very hush-hush, and it's not helping us at all. It's hurting us.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that, this kind of issue, here's the deal, and I'll admit, I'm really, really intrigued by what Miss Lewis-Thornton was saying about what's going on with her sorority. And I think this can happen in any sorority. It's not picking on Delta at all, because I respect the Delta women immensely. But I think that there are some people in our community who just don't want to talk about it. When you get into HIV, AIDS, STDs, all these things that are going on in our community, there are people who won't touch it. I knew someone, actually another African-American woman who actually happened to be an AKA, Not that this matters, but I figure that's important so people don't think we're picking on the Deltas. And she went to her church, and she was, deep in the church. A lot of black women are heavy in the church, going to church every Sunday, taking notes. And so she lives in the Bible Belt in Kansas City, and she mentioned that she went to her church and she said to them, she said, look, the gay community is holding an AIDS awareness parade and rally where they are going to, or it's a march. I'm sorry, it was a march. On behalf of AIDS awareness. And she said, well, given that our community is affected as heavily as their community is, we should probably partner with them. Well, the people of her church didn't want to do that. They did not support her. And she was very disappointed and confused because she said, look, people are dying from this. And, if we're not stepping forward and doing something about this, we're going to continue to, harm ourselves and harm our communities. Do you think that there's some sort of just a stigma in terms of just even talking about it, or do you think that people believe that if they don't think about it or they don't mention it, it's going to go away? I mean, what do you think the issue is here?
Again, I just think the discussion about sex as a whole in our community is just very taboo. I think because the problem is it has been passed down for generations to generations. Like, no one has talked about it in either generation. So it makes it very uncomfortable for anyone to start, from any generation, to start talking about it with, the younger generation. So I don't think that we believe it's going to go away. But I do believe that maybe, the church, thinking that if we, pray about it or preach abstinence or something, that people will follow that. And obviously it's not working. It's not working at all.
Right. It's not working. And I agree with you. I mean, it's so interesting that sometimes we think that as adults that we can just tell our kids, when it comes to sex, just don't do it. And then, we might know that our children are having sex and we just don't think about it. We don't bring it up. So the conversation never happens, and they still end up having sex because we know sex is probably the most powerful force in our existence. It's the foundation for the creation of all human life. So we are biologically wired to desire sex, because it's key to our survival. So it happens, and kids end up doing it all the wrong ways. I think that also when you talk about what's going on with black women, this is where I think the sisters of Delta Sigma Theta should demand answers for what happened to this activist. Now, I don't know. I mean, she might just be an annoying person. I have no clue. She likes to cuss a lot. She probably, offends a lot of people. So let's just be real about that. But even if that's the case, I can't see them having any justification to officially removing her just because the president was annoyed with her. So I think that the personal beef she might have has to be separated from any legitimate reasons for kicking her out of the sorority, because I think that we should consider people to be heroes when they step out there and they talk about those things that lead so many people to walk away in shame with. I'm a believer that there are millions of women out here and men too, but millions of people, and we're talking about women now because we're talking about the Deltas. I think that there are millions of women out here who have had, tragic horror stories that relate to STDs that they're not telling anybody because they're too ashamed. And you tell them that your boyfriend gave you, gonorrhea, or your husband gave you HIV. You're afraid that people are going to think that you're a slut, or that you're diseased, or you're tainted, or that you're a bad person, or that you're going to hell, or whatever people like to do, condemning each other and all this other stupid stuff. And so these stories never get told. So guess what happens when you don't tell your story? Another young woman who could have avoided that same mistake is out there making that same mistake right now because you're scared to open your mouth. So that's my beef with this whole thing, is that I think that when I see what's going on, and I'm using this Delta situation as a case in point, as a launching point for this broader conversation, I can't help it. Until I see evidence otherwise, I hold this woman, this activist, up as a hero. And I would be honored to have her as a part of my sorority if I were indeed Greek. And the fact is that by her telling her story, she has helped so many people. So if you're going to punish someone like that, if you're going to honor somebody from Hollywood for being in your sorority, but you can't honor somebody who's fighting on things that are saving the lives of black women, then you need to check your priorities, because your stuff is all jacked up. And I think a lot of Delta women, most of the Delta women who have texted me on this issue or emailed and called me about this agree with that point. What do you think on this?
I agree. I mean, most sororities aim to, be community activists, reaching out. So I'm sure that most of the members of the organization are disappointed in watching, this honorary member whose heart was clearly broken from the situation. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that, there's always two sides to a story, but just given the information that we know from her, I do think it's kind of shameful on the organization. It is. And I think that they should definitely look into probably reorganizing or restructuring and choosing better leadership. But again, we only know one side of the story. But I agree with you. I mean, this woman is clearly a hero. And I mean, community outreach, she is community outreach. So it would be a disgrace to lose such an honorable member. So I hope they're able to, come up with a better solution.
I hope so too. And I know, for the sake of fairness, right now the only voice that we're hearing is Miss Thornton's voice. She was very, very candid when she got on YouTube and just let it out. And she's real candid. The video's on Your Black World if you'd like to hear it from her perspective. We reached out to Delta Sigma Theta's national headquarters and asked for a comment from either the president or the spokesperson. And because I wanted there to be fairness, because I'm going to write on this. I'm going to write about this on News One. I'm going to write about it some other places too. And we're going to keep talking about this on Your Black World. And so far they haven't gotten back to us. Now maybe they're preparing a statement. Maybe they don't care to get back to us. Maybe they don't have time. Maybe they're going to say something later. I don't know. I'm willing to hear what they have to say, but until that time, I'm going to operate based on what we know. And what we know is that there is no apparent reason that this woman should have been booted from the sorority. I just thought that was shameful. And on top of that, this poor woman, she's been staring at her own death for the last 20-something years. She's lived with HIV, I think, for over 20 years, and has lived with AIDS for 17 years. So she could die at any moment. And it would be shameful for her to pass away with this sort of being the last interaction that she had with her beloved sorority, because she clearly she seemed clearly upset about what happened here. So, I'm as upset as she is, or not as upset, but I'm kind of steaming about this. I really want to hear what's going on. So, thank you very much, Reed, for, laying it out as far as, the issues with HIV and AIDS. Did you see any other interesting stats during your research?
Yeah, I did. Men who have sex with men, give me 1 second. Young African American, gay, and bisexual men are especially at risk of HIV infection. Black men who had sex with men represented an estimated 73% of new infections among all black men.
Okay. So, what about women? Did you see anything as far as women? I think I saw a stat that said black women also were one of the leading groups on HIV infection. And I think that's an important conversation to have, because I think that a lot of people see HIV/AIDS still as a gay disease. And, from what I saw the last time, I have a cousin that does CDC kind of work. And one of the things that that I've seen, in my research is that, we forget that a lot of heterosexuals are getting HIV/AIDS. So I think that that's an important conversation to have as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'll do is I know I threw that stats question on you at the last minute. But maybe if you have some more stuff that you'd like to share, you're always welcome to come back and we can definitely talk about it. Did you have anything else to say before we go?
Just protect yourself. Talk to your kids about it. It shouldn't be a taboo subject. Talk to your kids. Educate them. Educate yourself and educate the kids.
All right. Educate and elevate, and then you will emancipate. I made that up all by myself just now. That's how smart I am. I'm kidding. I'm not that smart. I just work hard with what I got. But thank you all for checking us out at yourblackworld.com. And until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.